Good morning, everybody. Thank you. Thanks again for all your time and attending. And I hope that a lot of value is going to be given to you through the course next hour or two. I think that what I'm trying to do today is, I know we emailed you a editable PDF. So it's not even just a high level theoretical, the conversation today. It's for those of you that have got some ideas in terms of actually taking your business forward. This is a very simple strategic framework for a small business and predominantly businesses in the service-based industry. So people that are selling time, maybe you may not be billing time, but you're producing in time. So nothing really tangible from a product perspective. Although a lot of the thinking would be valuable for, if you want to make jars of honey, for argument's sake, a lot of this would help as well. But it is aimed at people selling services. So consultants, whether you're in the HR space or in the creative space or the tech, software development space, any of those kind of spaces, I think that this would be of real value. And as a starting point, I think what is important to understand is that, there is no, and I've said this in the training last year, there is no perfect strategy. Strategy is there as a departure point. It's a plan of action to move your business forward. It's something you need to obviously measure and make sure that it's working or not working, so you can change direction and realign as and when you need. So today's thinking is quite simplistic. The PDF, you should all be working on it while I'm working on it as well. So please work through it at the same time. And again, can I just ask everyone to please mute themselves so we don't have any extra noise, but please feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions along the way. You can also dump it into the chat if you want, but if you have questions, let me answer it now versus a chat down the line. There will be time for Q&A at the end as well, but let's make this a bit more interactive, that if you want to ask me questions along the way. So let's get into it. The 5 Ones is something that's being used by quite a few businesses around the world. It's not my thinking necessarily. It is kind of a practice that has been adhered to by other businesses. And very simply, at a high level, what we can do today is we're going to go through 4 of the 5 Ones, because the 5th one you'll see at the end is not really a practical piece. So the 5 Ones is made up as follows. It's one perfect client, or the client avatar. So who is the client that you believe will be the right kind of client for the next short period of time? By short period of time, 6 to 12 months. And we can try and define what that client looks like. Then we need to the second one, which is the signature service or the primary product. So what is your service or product that's going to solve one of those client avatars' problem, and that you want to be world famous at and unique at the way you do it? So one kind of client that's perfect for you, one service that you can offer that client that solves a problem in that client's business. The third one is the marketing channel. So this is picking one place to speak about yourself and your business to the market. And the idea for me is that we get very particular around which of those channels you're going to pick, depending on who you're going after, and to become an expert at one of those channels. And we'll get into that shortly. And then the 4th one is the conversion method. So how do you take someone who's shown interest in your product or service from one of the marketing channels and convert them to a paid for client? And the last one is do these 4 things for a year so you become an expert and focus on your business and don't get sidetracked by lots of other shiny pennies. So summary of the 5 Ones is one perfect client, one service for that client, one marketing channel, one method to convert the client to your business to become a paid client, and do that for 1 year. And we're going to go through the first 4 in a bit more detail to help you thicken out what is the client service, what is your one product, what is the channel, and what is your conversion method. And again, any questions, please feel free to ask. So hopefully you've got your document in front of you. If you have a look at the document, below each question, there's a block, and you can answer your questions into that block and save it for yourself. And obviously you can re-edit it later if you change your mind. But the idea for me is that we do this as a workshop, and you can work through this. So at the end of today's session, you've got a real indication of what your 5 Ones strategy looks like. And if there are gaps that you need to go and fill, which gaps you need to go do research on, or ask around, or fill, so that your thinking is slightly richer. So the first one is the client avatar, right? Who is the perfect client for your business, the way you think about your business? And I know that some of you haven't maybe launched your business, but what does that perfect client look like? And what are the questions that help define the perfect client? So I'm going to give you guys a minute to answer each of these questions. So the first thing I think that, and a lot of this may be sort of based on your gut feel versus an experience based on historical work. But if you had to start your business, what size client do you want? And by size, it can be anything from you want to supply other one-man businesses, or you want to supply the government or parastatals, right through to multinationals or corporates. And this, again, this can be defined by the size of the headcount in that business, by the size of the revenue or their profits, or sort of, how many places in the world that, you think they're in. So if you had to answer, what size business do you think would be best for you? Put that down in block 1. So in this example, I'm going to put here 10-man business, owner run. And I believe that would be the right sort of size business for me based on my gut feel of how I can get these people, or maybe the sort of networks that I have. So take 2 seconds and write down, what do you think the right size business is at a high level? Again, you can always come back and re-edit this at a later stage. Then what I want you to do is I want you to pick an industry. Now, it's quite difficult to pick one industry, but the reality for me is that when you become an expert at one industry, you learn a lot more from your clients. Your clients are going to educate you on the industry. And once you become an expert on the industry, going into the sales process and selling to other clients in the same industry is easier. So I use pharmaceutical as an example because in the past, I've had creative agencies, guys that do design and marketing, specialize in pharmaceutical. And once they're in the pharmaceutical space, they understand things like the label laws and all the sort of regulation around the pharmaceutical industry. And they get taught that by their clients. But when they start going into producing marketing content for their own marketing and going into the sales process with other clients, when they start speaking about their expertise within the pharmaceutical industry, those pharmacies go, these guys are the right guys. They understand my business. They get me. They understand my problem. So again, try and pick one industry that works well for you based on your experience or the kind of work that you want to be doing. So in my life, I'm going to put down there software development. So I want to go after software development businesses that are roughly 10-man businesses and ideally owner run. What are the common struggles that you can help this industry with? And again, you may not know this, or you may have an indication, or you may go do some sort of research or pick up the phone and phone 10 of these clients and try and understand what their common problems are that you can solve. But if you know what their struggles are, that helps you tailor the next one, which is your perfect client. So the common struggles with the industry consist with possibly, it's things in my life would be things like scaling staff, hiring, protecting margins, etc., etc. So what kind of, for me, it's always around the business problems. That's what I do. But in your life, if you had to pick that particular industry of that particular size client, what do you think their problems are that you can help them with? And it could be things like complexity around staff, or it could be around internal software or integration of software, depending on your skill set. The next thing is, where are they geographically positioned? Now, interesting enough is that this used to be a way more important conversation pre-COVID because sales meetings used to happen in the room predominantly. Now, less so. But you may find that it is still important for you because you may find that your home language is Afrikaans. Therefore, you're not selling to Europe. You want to sell to the local environment. So it could be something as broad as South Africa or Sub-Saharan Africa, or it can be a 5K radius around where your office or your home is, depending on what you want to be doing. Also bear in mind is that if you are wanting to sell physical product, your geographical position does become a bit more important. So where do you want to be positioned? And I'm using an example here is that I want to be positioned within 2 hours of GMT. So I want to sell from South Africa all the way up to Europe, 2 hours early, 2 hours late in those time zones. So anything sort of in the UK, probably to Mauritius, and then anyone that's also, for me, English speaking. So that gives me an idea of, firstly, what size business, which industry, what are their problems I'm trying to solve, and whereabout in the world do I want these people to be? Again, different for every single one of you, but I would like you to be thinking about this in a bit more detail. The next thing is, how are they demographically positioned? I.e., your clients, they supply, if they are B2B, they supply other clients, or if they are B2C, they are the consumer, are they higher or lower LSM? LSM has got to do with their buying power. So if you think about the consumer out there, are they a Woolworths client or are they a ShopRite client? Are they a luxury brand or are they a generic consumer brand? So where are they positioned? And so again, there's no right and wrong, but you build your business based on where they're positioned. It helps you understand what kind of marketing, as well as which marketing channels are best used to find these people. So generally what you find is that high LSM are people with money. And think about, do they own Apple phones? And if they own an Apple phone, they probably higher LSM, or are they on old-fashioned Nokias and they probably lower LSM? So those are the kind of things you could think about. You may not have a high LSM or lower LSM in your product requirement. It could be for everybody, but so not all these questions were relevant to all of you all the time, but sometimes it is relevant. So we want to make sure we don't forget about it and ask the question. The next thing is, who are you going after? So are you going after the consumer directly? So are you selling honey directly to the user online, or are you selling honey to ShopRite Checkers, who's a B2B client, who's then selling it onto the consumer? Or are you looking for other consultancies to supply or other agencies to supply, or are you going direct? So the thing around this is it also helps with finding where these people exist. Because if you're going B2B, you're selling to a person. When you're going B2C, you're selling to lots of people. And that helps you understand the next steps in the strategy piece. So in my space, I'm very much a B2B business. I supply other businesses. I don't supply the consumer direct. Again, depending on what service or product you want to produce, that's up to you. There are obviously pros and cons. If you're going after middlemen, you generally have less margin because they are either reselling you or using you to solve a problem internally. Or if you go direct, you can probably make a bit more money. But going direct often is a bit more challenging, again, depending on your product service. So we're going to go into further on the sort of product that you want to be selling. But based on what you've written down so far, what do you think the main product they would buy from you is? And we're going to thicken this out later, but what do you think that would be? So for me, in my life, it's very much around coaching in the space that I sell my services. So what is the product that you think you'd want to sell to them? So is it consulting? Is it a physical product? Is it advisory by nature? What are the things that you want to do? Put that down under which product service they would probably buy from you. Again, we're going to thicken that out in way more detail in the next section. Do you have other products or services? So in your mind, like I sell coaching, but I also sell facilitation, I also sell strategic facilitation, I also sell a little bit of training. I do a bit of public speaking. So there are other products that I have as well, which are not my primary product, but tend to be sold to my clients once I sell them coaching. So I've got a product that gets me in the front door. It's kind of the Trojan horse. And once I'm in, I can then sell them other products and services. So if you had to go back to the kind of client you want and where they are and what kind of business they are, could they buy other products and services from you? What is the propensity of them to buy other products or services from you? So can you sell them, and how many of those other products do you think they could buy from you? So for me, I've got sort of five key services, and ideally, I want them to be able to buy all five over the lifetime of my supplying them. Do you have capacity to produce this product and service? So what you may find is that some of your clients will immediately suck up all your time. And if they do you have capacity to sell this product service? And if you don't, then obviously we don't want too many products or too many clients. So again, it depends on the capacity, whether you're selling time, whether you're selling service wrapped as a product, or whether you're selling physical product and potentially hiring other people to produce it. Again, I could sell other coaches time, so therefore I open up capacity. So at the moment, do I have capacity? The answer is probably no, I don't have capacity as it stands today. Does anyone have any questions at this point? Please feel free to shout. The next piece around this is, do you have the time to sell this product and service? So, and if you don't, how are you going to solve this? So do you have the time? I'm at a point where yes, I have the time to sell, but I'm very fussy as to who I sell to. So yes, with filters. So I'm very, very clear on who I want to be selling my time to, but I do have the time to sell this. If I didn't have the time to sell, but I had the time to do the work, there would obviously be a weird conflict, but potentially I could actually hire someone else to do sales for me. So I could solve it in a different way. How much money would you want this client to spend with you? Now, I sell a product, I sell coaching bundles. So I know how much my product bundle looks like, and I know how often they want to buy from me, which is the next question. So for me, I want them to spend somewhere between 7 and 10 a month with me. And how often is monthly. Now, what you may find is that sometimes it's project-based, so they spend 100,000 Rand for you over a 6-month period. It's a project, or it is a retainer or annuity-based where it's on a more regular basis. So you can decide, and again, this is a guess to understand, well, how do you do your pricing? How do you wrap your service in a product? And then, maybe sell under a silver, gold, and platinum sort of product base to understand better how you would set yourself up to be successful in terms of profitability. So how often would they spend with you? It can be once off, it can be monthly, it can be something like a 12-month project or retainer, or it's forever. They want to spend with me every month forever. That's entirely based on what you sell and how you want to sell it. How would they pay you? So this is it 100% every single month? Is it a project base? So, if you think about large projects, what you'll find is that there's a big deposit up front, and then there's payments on sort of hitting certain milestones or hurdles, or it's 50 upfront and 50 on finished, or it's like your gym contract, it's a certain amount every month and they're buying a certain amount of hours from you. So how would they pay you in terms of the structure around payment? For me, it's 100% on the first of month, every month. And that's, there's no retainer in place, but I want my clients to buy from me every single month. So how would you structure your payments in your business? And then this may or may not be important to you, but are they traditional or digitally inclined? So are they very, very advanced from a tech perspective or not? Now, what is important here is that it helps you understand later on, where do they exist? So if they're not digitally inclined, which I believe most people should be, but if they're not, then the way you reach them is billboards or poll advertising or producing pamphlets or doing physical cold calling, because they're not seeing your stuff online potentially. But also what happens is that if they're not digitally inclined, but they want to be, that might help you sell your product, because you understand that potentially what you are doing is actually helping them improve their digital capacity or capability within their business. So is this important to me? Yes, it is important to me, because those are the clients that I want to go after. I want to go after tech-based businesses. So it's very important to me that they are digitally inclined. How important should doing work with these people, being open to giving you more work within their business and outside their business? So what you will find is that with doing work within certain organizations, if I do work within small family-owned businesses, there's very little opportunity to do a hell of a lot more work with those businesses. But because I'm interacting with the decision-maker in the business, they give me referrals a hell of a lot. Where when I'm doing work within corporates, the referrals are obviously a lot less, because corporates don't speak to corporates necessarily, where small business owners speak to business owners. So is it important to you? It may not be, and this question may not be relevant to you, but could or should doing work with people lead to more work? And for me, this is yes, should be very important, based on my kind of clients. I'm just using my example with you as I'm doing it. But again, you're always looking for more leads and more referrals, but sometimes you don't need that from clients. Sometimes you're okay with your network. The next thing is, if you start defining thickening out who the client is, what would the scope of opportunity to upsell or to get those referrals? And upsell, sell more of the same product, but we can also talk about cross-sell, which is selling different services to the same client. So how important is that? And in my life, that is obviously also very important. I want to be able to make sure that I have one product that gets me in the door, but over time, sell them as many products as I possibly can. Those of you that were on in our training 6 months ago, there was a product and client matrix, which talked about who's the client, what are the lists of products that we sell, and where are the gaps, and how do we fill those gaps? And that speaks to this upselling opportunity. At what level would you deal with them? So are you dealing with a CIO, CMO, CEO? Are you dealing with the business owner? Are you dealing with mid-management or lower management? At what level would you like to be dealing with them? And also that indicates at what level you would enter the sales process with, because you want to come in generally as high as possible when you're making the sale. But on an ongoing basis, who do you want to deal with? And in my space, I'm always dealing with the owner generally exclusively when it comes to my coaching. I don't want to deal with staff, and I certainly don't want to deal with anyone that's not the decision maker in the business. If you know, and maybe you can do some research here, does this kind of client have a budget to spend? And you can often find that if you're doing, if you do a little bit of research online, you can quite quickly get an indication whether they are spending money and therefore have a budget. So if I had to go look at a GET, is there a marketing person? And if they have got a marketing person, and I can find that either through the website or through LinkedIn, if they've got a marketing person, then they probably have a marketing budget. And similarly, if you're selling, say, software, if you go to LinkedIn and you can go look at, there's lots of software developers there, you've got a real idea that there's opportunity to do work with them. And often what I find is that you'll see there's a lot of back-end developers, no front-end developers, therefore we can sell them UI or UX upfront. So do they have an annual budget to spend? In my space, it's not important. But in some instances, it's very important to establish they've got a budget, otherwise you're wasting your time selling them your services. Lastly, this is a very sort of selfish question potentially, but maybe you're at a stage in your life where you want to be selfish. How important is the culture fit to you in terms of working people that you want to work with? And for me, it's very important because of the stage of where I'm in my life. But often at the beginning of starting a business where you're often, I say this, quite desperate for money or just need to get some cash in, culture is not a question that you think about. But often when you look at clients and I speak to my clients and go, who are your bad clients? It's the ones that don't pay well, obviously are not great clients, but often it's people that we just don't like working with, and that's a culture fit. So is culture fit for you an important consideration? For me, yes, it is. And therefore you need to consider what your culture is. Who am I? And try and make sure that when you're doing the sales interview piece for them, that you're actually thinking around, will working with this person be a fun experience or a terrible experience? And then sort of the last pieces on defining the perfect client is this client going to stimulate you and your team if you've got a team, and is this important? And by stimulation, it means that for me, a personal driver is growth and learning. And if I've got clients that are quite boring by nature, I get bored with them and then I disengage. So making sure that I'm learning something through the process or I'm challenged is important. So for me, this is very important. And for you, it may also be because you want to be engaged in learning and challenged as well. Or you may want clients that know less than you, won't challenge you, and you can be the expert in the room. It's entirely up to you. We're getting into the channels and conversion later, but based on what you've written in the last few pieces, where do you think you could find these people and expose your business to these perfect clients? And again, you could say things like online and be generic. It could be, if you have the budgets, things like TV or radio. It could be through networking groups. So where do you think you would find these people? And for me, I found over the last sort of 6 months that running webinars has been an amazing thing for me. And that would be an avenue, for argument's sake, to advertise. So I could put it on social media and put it online and go to my old database and email saying, I'm running a webinar in 2 weeks to talk about whatever it is I'm talking about, and get random new people to attend the webinar. And through that, try and find clients that I could potentially sell to. So it's an example, but there are loads and loads of different ways. At this point, I want you to think quite broad. Where do you think would be? So for me, it would be webinars and online, and that would be predominantly for me social media. Okay. For you, it may be different. There might be other sort of networking channels that might be of more value to you. The second last piece is that, are there any public relation benefits in doing this kind of work for you? And what I do find is that if you land a very large brand and you can use that brand in your case study, on your website, if you can talk to that, there is lots of value in landing that kind of work. And what you often find is that when businesses land well-known or established brands, they'll then put out something like a press release saying, just FYI, Spilly lands work with GET, well done, Spilly. And then people go, oh, Spilly's doing work with GET. That's, he must be quite good at what he does, for argument's sake. So again, is there any benefit in doing is there any PR benefit in doing work for these kinds of clients that you've established in the previous few slides or not? And for me, the answer is actually no, because I don't talk about the work that I do necessarily with the clients without them promoting me first or getting permission, but it's not something I do as a rule. So for me, there's no benefits in doing the work above, but that's not the way I operate. So entirely up to you. What you may find is landing work with the right kind of clients will bring in more work for you, and you're looking for work that will give you PR benefit. And the last thing here is that these kinds of businesses that you're targeting as your perfect client, will they affect your long-term goals? And long-term goals are things like, for argument's sake, you're thinking about leaving the country in the next 5 years. You want to go live in Europe because your kids have immigrated. But doing work in Cape Town or doing work in Joburg in the room affects your long-term goal of leaving the country. So think about, are you building a business to sell? Are you building a lifestyle business? Are you building a business with lots of people? Like, what kind of business do you want? And the kind of clients that you're picking up today, does it affect your long-term we talked about victory conditions in the future. So the example that I used here is that if you're thinking about building a business where you are selling to lots and lots of consultants, but ultimately the business you want to build and sell is to a consultancy, that client that consultant doesn't want to buy your business if all of your clients are their opposition. So like that affects the long-term thinking of your business. So for me, the kind of clients that I've outlined above doesn't affect my long-term goals of the business, but just be aware that if you do have goals, and maybe they're lifestyle goals or geographical goals or anything along those lines, make sure that you're thinking about those things when you start answering who the perfect client is. So hopefully that gives you an indication of one way to start thinking about what kind of client do I actually want to go after, and make sure that I'm only speaking to those kinds of clients. These are often referred to as your primary audience. When we get to marketing, it's the people that you're trying to reach that will actually spend money with you. That is your primary audience. So again, when you start thinking about marketing and that primary audience, what you want to be thinking about is that we talked about this in the last session, was the 1-9-90 rule for marketing. And it's just a reminder, is that 1% produce content that's relevant to the market, where 9% start sharing that kind of content. And those are often considered sort of influencers online or people of influence. And then 90% consume that content. And those are the people who you are trying to reach that want to spend money with you. But the reason why I'm bringing this up again is that when you start thinking about the kind of clients that you want to go after, you almost must also think about, well, who is the 9%? Because if you're going after a mass audience of the 90%, you must start thinking about building your business with understanding who the people are that you need to reach in order to reach the end consumer. So if you think about this, who are the people that in your business that your client will respond to? And for me, I just think about, in my life, I do a lot of work with the media advertising communications places. I'm looking for the thought leaders in creative agencies. And I want to know that I can engage with those people on Twitter and on LinkedIn and engage them in conversation, because they are the people that may or may not be my clients, but my clients look up to and respect. So if I'm going to run a webinar, I'm looking for one of the hard-hitting agency or software development house owners to run the webinar with and do the interview with. Why? Because I know people that follow him are potentially my clients. So bear in mind when you're doing this, who are the people that you need to engage with when we get into the next piece here to make sure that you can reach the right audience for your business. So again, the primary product is the product and service that you want to sell. This is the second one of the 5 ones. So it's the product that you want to be sort of world class at. It's the product that you're going to speak about the most in the channels you're going to speak about. You need to be able to make this product unique in some way, or the service unique in some way that allows people to entertain you in the sales process and engage with you to set up a 20-minute meeting. We'll get to the elevator pitch as well, but it's the thing that you bring into your elevator pitch. It's the product that you want to be selling when you pitch it to someone quickly. And it's just a tool for you to allow yourself to get into the sales process and sell your product, as well as it gives you clarity on how you're going to speak about it in your marketing channel. So at a high level, what you want to do is you want to try and niche the products twice. And by niching, I'm saying is that you don't want to just be, I'm a software developer. It's, I'm a software developer that deals in Angular. So there's one niche. But I'm also a software developer that does Angular development for the pharmaceutical industry. That's a double niche. So you become quite a unique specialist. It could also be the fact that you're the Angular developer who only works in the 5K radius from where you live. So it can be a multiple of ways to think about it in the way you think about the product that you want to sell. But where possible, try and find 2 ways to niche your product. So if you think about your primary product, what is the thing that you want to sell to your primary, to your perfect client? What is that service? It may not be the only service that you sell, but it's a service that you want to put on your business card, on the front page of your website, on your bio on LinkedIn. Like, what do you want to be known for? So for me, I want to be the coach for media advertising, communications, and tech business owners. So I'm a business coach that only deals within these people, those sort of things. And that's not necessarily a double niche, but also the way I coach is different from traditional coaching. So I'm a bit of a blend, and that goes into my elevator pitch. So in your life, as you stand today, what is the signature service that you want to be known for? Again, not the only thing you do, but the thing that's going to open up the door for sales opportunities. Once you know what that is, then you want to add that unique selling proposition. It's your differentiator. You don't want to be seen as another Me Too business. And again, the Me Too business is, oh, you're a software development business. Yes. Oh, me too. That's a problem, because then you're just basically a commodity-based business. You don't want to be a commodity-based business unless you decide to be a commodity-based business like a chappie's business. But ideally, if you're selling your time, you don't want to be a commodity. So what is it that makes you unique? And often you get that through engaging with clients or people that you've worked with who recommend or compliment you on something that you do. So it can be the actual product itself, or it's the way in which you deliver the product, for argument's sake. So what you want to do is figure out what is it that makes you unique, that you can position your business in a different way. So you need to find something that you believe in, which is true, and that can convince clients to buy from you and buy from you quickly. So now, buy from you now. And the way you would do that is start with a long format document. So you haven't got time to do that necessarily while I'm on the call now, but work out what makes you unique. So it can be the fact that you have very deep skills in a particular skill set. It can be the fact that you've been doing it for many, many years, so you've got experience. It can be the fact that you've done it across multiple different kinds of industries or one industry, because those are all different. Those are things that are unique and attractive to a particular kind of client. Bear in mind, again, we're trying to go after your client avatar. So long format, what makes you unique? And if I think about me at a high level, the fact that I've worked across, food, architecture, travel, and then the media advertising commerce spaces, I've got a broad set of skills that makes me slightly unique to the client that I'm going after. Then we want to know, what is the unique problem you're solving? So the USP is the unique selling proposition. The UPS is the unique problem you are solving. What is that problem? And I'm looking for one problem, like one thing that you kind of know for sure our perfect client is battling or cannot come to grips with, And I know that through my sales and through my service or my product, I can solve that problem. What do you think that problem is? And if you don't know what that problem is, you've got a problem in your business. You need to make sure that you're very clear on what benefit you give your client by unrolling your product or service. So what is the problem that you're solving in the client avatar? And then what makes you unique at what you do? Often what I find is that the benefits the client gets from the client's perspective is what actually makes you unique. And it's the fact that I can say, well, I've got a great coaching methodology and I can tell you I've got all my years of experience. But if you ask my clients, and it was an interesting exercise because I did 10 testimonial videos end of last year, I asked my clients, would they do it? If I looked at sort of the word cloud of what it was they were saying, it was more around the fact that I listen and I'm patient and I think about them and I genuinely care. And that's what makes me unique in their eyes, not my method and not my experience. It's actually who I am. So I realized quite quickly that what I want to be selling and the way I package it has actually changed over the last couple of years. And my USP is not the fact that I work in a particular industry in a particular way. It's the fact that I'm the right kind of coach for that kind of client and by the way in which I do the work, not necessarily my coaching methodology. So again, from a client's perspective, what makes you unique? If you don't have clients today, go to the people that you work with. Go to your ex-boss. Go to people that you worked with in the past. Go to your friends and family that have indication of who you are, and ask them from their perspective what they believe the benefit would be in working with you and what makes you unique. And then answer that over here. What you want to do is take that long format, all that information, all those words that people have said that you're amazing at what you do and how you do it, and condense it into one sentence. Now, I say this it sounds very easy to do, but it takes a long time to do it. And bear in mind that I'm a business coach. This is what I teach people to do. I've been doing this for 8.5 years. And in the last 2.5 months, I've realized that mine has actually changed and I've got to change it, update it to be actually what people are actually saying about me. It's how they refer me is what makes me unique, not what I'm telling them. So it is something that will change over time. But if you're starting your business, you need to know what that is. And again, if you need to fake it till you make it, do that. But don't make it too marketing speak, i.e., I give the best service, or I'm the quickest, or I'm the cheapest, because you don't want to be those things. And also, if you're going, I give the best service, everyone says that during the sales process. How do I know that? So you've got to get a layer deeper and make it more meaningful and richer for the client as well. So again, you don't want to be the fastest, best, or cheapest, because that's generally a race to the bottom. And you don't want to be doing something else that everyone else is doing. You need to try and attempt something unique, or the way you deliver it is unique, or the method by which you approach it is unique. You're trying to double niche. You're not also going after everybody. If you go after everybody, you go after nobody. If you try to satisfy everyone, you're going to fail. So try and appeal to that client avatar, to that perfect client, and work at what the problem that you're solving there and go after them in a unique way. The tools that you can use in thickening this out was given to you guys firstly in the book that you guys got last year, and in some of the talks that we did with you guys last year around the customer window and value proposition. Just as a reminder, the customer window talks to what does the customer want and get, want and not get, not want and get, and not want and not get. So it just helps it make sure that what does the client actually want from you? And the value proposition talks to what is the problem that you're solving, what are the pains you're taking away, and then how are you adding moments of magic and giving them additional gains. So it might be worth going back to those two tools to thicken out your primary product piece in more detail. So the one where we talked about producing your elevator pitch was something called the Gaddy pitch. Still can't find who Mr. Gaddy or Mrs. Gaddy is, but it's a great way to think about how you position yourself in a short period of time in terms of your new business. So what is the problem that your client has? What is your solution to the problem and what makes it unique? Give me proof that you are the expert, that you are the right person, that there's some kind of case study that you have solved this problem in a unique way in the past. And then outside of those three pieces, how do you remove clients' pain and add those moments of magic and surprise and delight your client? And if you remember, the Getty pitch was made up of the three pieces. What is the problem your client has? You start the sentence with, you know how, when. So you know how, when. So you know how, when you're trying to grow your business and you're not sure how to take it to market, that's the problem. You're solving the problem. You know how, when. What we or I do is, and that gives you a solution and make it sound unique. And then case study. And case study is, I've done it for 8.5 years, I've done it for 150 businesses, I've done it for the biggest and the smallest, I've done it for the biggest brands, I've done it locally, internationally. Prove to me that you're the best. So as opposed to going, hey, Spilly, what do you do? I go, I'm a business coach, and no one knows what that is. I go, well, you know how when you're trying to figure out how to grow your business and find the right clients and work out how to package your product correctly, what I do is help them with this, this, and this. And I've done it for 200 businesses for the last 8.5 years. So it's packaging all of these things, but you also want to put in your client avatar and your primary product in there. So, you know how, when, what I do is I help the following industries by solving that problem. So I've packaged the client into it as well to make sure that whoever I'm speaking to understands I'm an expert in a particular field. So again, what is the problem that you have? What is your unique solution? Give me proof that you can do this. And then outside of doing the work, what else can you add that will be in the sales pitch that will surprise clients? So it can be things like, well, I also just won an award for the work that I do. Or, this piece was used on the Blue Bank's new website, or something that sounds like quite remarkable that will surprise and delight a potential client. And think about what that is, that you can use it all the time to make sure that you sound incredibly credible and like the right person to work with. So that's the Getty pitch. Any questions up to this point? Anyone? Feel free to chime in. Cool. The next piece out of that is the marketing channel. So there are loads of ways to take your product and try and chase the perfect client in today's times, right? So there's everything from going direct to going indirect, and also it does make a big difference whether you've thought about being that B2B or B2C business. But once you know if you're a B2B or B2C, and you make the decision to go direct or indirect, i.e. direct being email, cold call, going, using LinkedIn inbox, and that's going direct, versus indirect, which is doing things like webinars or writing long format articles or doing public speaking, where it's a bit more spray and pray, you can then decide which is the right marketing channel for you. Again, other tools that can help you with your thinking here, which are in the book, was that social media content canvas, which talks to, what is the problem that you're trying to solve? Who are you going after? Is it according to your values? Who's the perfect client? Who's that 9% or that influence that can help you get there? What is the messaging you're going to say? How are you going to creatively put it down there, and then how you're going to measure it? And then PR Smith Sostek is a very traditional marketing strategy in more detail. And there's 6 phases to that as well. But that'll give you a lot more indication as to, if you have to pick one marketing channel, which one is it? So examples of channels are things like you actually have a store, like a physical space, a pop-up shop, that kind of thing. Or you can go e-commerce, online store. So channels are pay-per-click, so ads on Google AdWords, or organic ranking on social media, on search engine, using search engine optimization. Things like social media is the low-hanging fruit, everyone's on it. Direct email marketing, you could put together some kind of a referral program. So if guys buy from you, you reward the middleman. So like a Tupperware party structure potentially. You could run physical events like at expos, or actually have your own sort of public relations launch event, that sort of thing. Using PR, so getting your name out there on other people's publications in magazines and other websites. And again, speaks to events as well. Strategic partnerships, so finding other people that have a very large database of clients that you can sell through. So what you may find is that in my life, there are organizations called like the IAB or YPO or EO these are businesses with lots of other business owners that I can use, that I can give a discount to, who will then resell me on to their clients. So, one-stop shop for me. Again, using webinars or some kind of physical seminar. You can go direct with a great desktop. If you remember in the book, there was a lot on, creative desktops and what that means. If you like the cold call or direct emails, I think that's still a very much in today's terms, still very much underused and underappreciated. Public speaking, again, pre-COVID in the real world, but you can do public speaking like online as well today. You can do content marketing, so producing long format articles or videos, and then doing some kind of funnel to take them through. And then affiliate marketing, using other people's online programs or their programs to talk about you. Can I just ask you guys, please mute yourselves if you've just joined. Thank you. But I want you to pick one channel. So, I know that it makes sense to go, well, we could do social and we can do email and I can use my network and yes, you can. But for this particular strategy, we want to pick one because we want to become really good at it. We want to know what works so we can measure it correctly. We want to make sure that we know that our client avatar lives in that space and we can target them correctly. And also, as you start running your marketing on these channels, a lot of these channels give very quick, immediate, and measurable feedback of what's working and what's not. And if it works, we do more. If not, we can do less of. So let's pick one channel. And when I talk about one channel, social media is a channel, but I don't want you to be on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and Google. And I'm saying is pick one. So if you think that your clients are going to be on LinkedIn, then you're going to become the expert on LinkedIn. Not Instagram and not Twitter and not Facebook. Pick one channel that is the right channel to sell your product to your perfect client. So which channel do you think will work best for you if you're going after a particular audience? Now, over time, you can split it out into different clients and different products and different channels. So in my life, I run, if I'm going after small creative agencies, I will use Instagram because I know that's where they live. They don't like LinkedIn. Where if I'm going after slightly larger businesses and the C-suite, the CEOs, CMOs of sort of larger businesses, then LinkedIn is the place for me. So I use pretty pictures on Instagram and I use long format copy on LinkedIn, but I'm selling to two different audiences. Again, for this strategy, I want you to pick one audience and one channel. So which channel do you think you will use? How will you prove to yourself, based on belief or case study, that this is the right marketing channel to use? So again, when I started my business, I was on everything. I was trying to be on every single channel to see where I would get, and it took a lot of time and effort to put it out there. But over time, I've got real proof that I've got two preferred channels for two different audiences, and that's where I generally focus my energy. So I've got case study to support why I'm using those channels. If you don't have case study, then you've got to figure out, well, where do those clients that you want to target your client avatar exist? And potentially what you may want to do then is go, well, where are you the most comfortable? So if you're going, well, of all these channels, I'm the most comfortable on LinkedIn, then I'm going, great. If that's where you're comfortable, let's start there, okay? Again, no strategy survives impact with the enemy. So if you are going to start using LinkedIn and you find it doesn't work, then don't hang on to it for too long. Let's try something else. But if there is a reason why you believe LinkedIn or any of the other channels are the right channels, then write that here so you know why you're picking that channel. If you now know which channel you're going to use, who the client that you want to go after is, and which product you want to be selling or which service you want to be selling, what is the message or the messaging that you want to communicate over that channel? So, and the messaging is sort of high level. So I talk to the fact in my blog post that I have a lot of experience across many years of doing work, very evergreen business thinking versus very, very particular short-term stuff. So I don't talk about politics. I don't talk about what happened at Facebook last week with the American judicial system. I don't talk about stuff that's going to expire necessarily. So I want to make sure, firstly, evergreen. That's just me. It may not be for you. I want to talk to the fact that I've got a broad scope of psychology to business. I talk about EQ, RQ, and templates and frameworks. So what kind of messaging do I want to talk to? And always make sure I'm speaking to the right kind of client. If I am over time going to be using different channels, am I consistent across my different channels? Now, bear in mind, you go LinkedIn, but you may have a website, which isn't where you're actually trying to gain leads as part of, you're not using the website to find people. But if I look you up through LinkedIn and hit your website, are you saying the same things across your website, your business card, and your LinkedIn? Like, make sure that at all your touch points, what you are saying is consistent across all of those things. So make sure that's important. Because if you're telling me one thing on LinkedIn and your website is something else, then we got a problem, because then you've lost me in the sales process. Do you have the resources or budgets to produce the kind of content for these marketing channels? So what you may find is that LinkedIn requires a lot of copywriting, which means that you need, in terms of resource, time to write lots of articles, or you want to pay a writer to produce the stuff for you. Therefore, it's going to cost physical money. You may also want to spend money on some of the social media channels or Google. Do you have the necessary resource budgets to make sure that if you're picking that channel, that you can actually afford to use that channel effectively? Where you may find that other channels are less resource intensive, and therefore may help you think about which of the channels are better for you. So again, if you're writing long format for LinkedIn, what is the resource required? It's probably a little bit of maybe some design, or maybe and a lot of copy, and maybe a little bit of money to boost those posts across social media. So do you have the money and resources or time or people to do these things? What is your ROI? What is your return on investment? So if you're going to spend 10 hours a month writing blog posts, or 2 hours a month briefing a writer and paying that writer 5,000 Rand, whatever you're paying them, what is the return that you expect? And return can be money. So I spend a Rand, I get a Rand 50 back. Or it can be, I spend a Rand and I get 2 leads. Or I spend a Rand and I get 10 people liking the posts, or I'm getting lots of new friend requests or connection requests. But understand that if you're going to do the work to get yourself onto a channel, work out what is it you expect to get in return, to make sure that you are getting the return. Because if you're not, then something is wrong with the channel, or your expectations might be slightly need to be realigned again. In terms of doing the work to get the stuff on the channel, who's going to do this? So it may not be you. I use a real example, is that I post, and I say post, I put out 2 blog posts every single week, every Wednesday, every Friday. I post it. I don't write it. I've got a writer and a designer who are freelancers that help me do that. So who is part of the team? It's myself and the 2 guys that help me. They're part of my team. These guys help me action this plan. In terms of getting it off the ground, consider short term. So like, what needs to be done by when to get yourself onto these channels? And you may want to consider the fact that you, if we go back one slide, in terms of the resources and budgets, you may need a website before you get onto LinkedIn. You may want other owned assets before you start marketing yourself. So those things constrain sometimes the timelines, where I'm going to go do it tomorrow, and you're going to, well, I can't do it tomorrow because I need to set up a website first. So, but I want you to try and get it going as soon as possible. Again, I'm not sure where each of your timelines are, but make sure that you can start actioning this plan quite quickly. In terms of the initial campaign, the first thing is the messaging campaign based, i.e. start date and end date, so we can test it? Or is it going to be always on, that we're just going to be speaking about this forevermore? Or a combination? You may have an always on campaign, which just talks to what you do and how you do all the time, and then particular campaigns around particular product or particular services, or your Valentine's Day special, for argument's sake. So think about how you're going to produce the messaging around the campaign. And again, always do this with considering, who is the audience that you want to spend money with you, and is it relevant to them? And then if you are want to be, true to your own ideals and values, make sure that the stuff that you're putting out is actually who you are. There's nothing more frustrating, especially for small business, in seeing very tongue-in-cheek very sarcastic, very funny content out there, and then you meet the person behind the business and they're really stale, or vice versa. So you want to make sure that you're being true in terms of the tone of who you are in all the stuff that you're doing online, especially all the kind of content that you're producing. So it must sound like you if you're the person they're going to be dealing with, and make sure that's consistent to who you are. Then we're looking at the conversion method. So how do we take them from those channels, which is social media or a webinar or public speaking or whatever it is that you choose to do? How do you get them to engage with you and actually spend some money with you and buy from you? And the conversion method is often made up of 2 or 3 pieces, but you want to make sure that you've got those 2 or 3 pieces nailed perfectly. So an example would be is that if you were doing a webinar, because great, I can put out a webinar and people can join. Generally, what you try and do is you try and get their email address before the webinar and maybe a cell phone number. So at the end of the webinar, I can email these people, number one. But what you could also do is to go at the end of the email, at the end of the webinars, to go, you know, if you want more information, or if you want to download my free ebook, or you want a 20-minute free strategy call, you know, here's my email address, you know, set up a meeting, or here's my Calendly request. You can get yourself into my diary and you can set up a 20-minute call with me. So that's step one, is to take them from the webinar to some kind of real interaction where they can spend some time with you. And then that interaction is either you're adding value and selling, or you are just selling. And it could be a multi-staged approach, but that could be, so webinar to strategic conversation to closure. And closure then means like, well, how do you actually get them to buy? It means you've got to send them an online application form and an invoice. But you need to be sure of what the steps are to take them from somewhere to depositing money into your account to do the work. So examples, easy examples are things like e-commerce. You drive them from social media to e-commerce. They either swipe their card or they don't. They buy from you or they don't, okay? Then there are things like sales meetings. What you could also do is that you could put them onto some kind of email journey saying, you know, if you're interested in this, over the next 5 weeks, I can send you 5 pieces of content. And you'll send them 4 pieces for the first 4 weeks. And the 5th one would be a call to action, which goes, if you've loved this stuff and you want more, you know, we're now selling product at X amount, let's set up a call. But be clear on that so you know what the stages are and then what the scripts are or the conversation that is required at each one of those stages. So things are, you may need things like landing pages as part of your website. You could do the freemium model, which goes, you know, you get the first month free and therefore you pay, or if you buy from me, there's a discount. But very often in B2B service-based industries, if you're selling HR consulting or you're selling software development, it often does tend to be a physical sales meeting of some sort, whether it's online or physical, immaterial, but a sales meeting. So what does that sales meeting look like? And how do you get them to that sales meeting, I think is what I'm trying to get to. And then also what you may want to do is that part of the strategy, and something we haven't really talked about, is that if you do have clients, your strategy could be just to get some of those clients onto a new meeting to sell them more stuff over time. So upsell and cross-sell. So how are you going to get them from a point of interest to spending money with you? In the past, if you've been doing this, you sort of know what works and what doesn't work, and you can then tailor it and improve it. But if you're not sure, you've got to trust your gut in terms of what you think the clients are going to do and what kind of journey or a combination of journeys you need to get them to buy from you. So it can be, you know, part of a LinkedIn article. If you want the full article, send me your email address and I'll email it to you. And then, you know, email them a separate email going, hey, I see you were interested in the email. Can we set up a call to maybe sell you some service? So like, what does that look like? And if you aren't sure, go look at what your opposition are doing. Go look what the best of breeds are doing out there and maybe copy what they are doing or how they are doing it to make sure that you, as a departure point, have a way of doing it. So you also may realize that getting someone to buy off LinkedIn, i.e. they've seen you on LinkedIn, they send you and you send them an inbox, they give you an email address, and then you contact them. What you may find is that you need other marketing collateral to support that, like things like a contract or credit application or a credentials pack or testimonial videos or other things that you need to support the sales or support the conversion method. So just be aware that if you need other stuff, what are the other things in the steps and stages that you need to also produce to make sure that your conversion is slick and the same every single time. And then the last one is do this for 1 year. And I say 1 year is that I believe that even if you are a bit of a Me Too business and you actually aren't that unique and what you do isn't that fantastic, if you do this correctly, you identify a kind of client, you know how to package what you sell into a beautiful one-off product or a set of products, your primary product or signature service, you become an expert on a particular channel, and you know how to convert people from that channel into money in the bank, and you just do this consistently, you will grow a business. And the big risk in starting a business is that I always talk about the shiny pennies, that you're walking down the road of running your business or your strategy, and you see something shiny on the side and you step off the road and you go pick up the penny and you take your eye off what you're trying to do. So I want you to try and stick to this as hard as possible for at least 12 months. But having said that, and I said this before, is that if you see it's genuinely not working and that it needs to change, then change it, obviously. But then change it to you changing out one of those ones and do that for the next 12 months. So I want you to control and measure the success of what you're doing and whether the conversion methods are working, and just keep doing that and track it at least every 3 months to see, is this method working for you? And if you're a smallish business, you'll know quite quickly if it's working for you or not, and what the sort of engagement looks like on each one of those things. So one client, one product solution, one marketing channel, one conversion method, 1 year. Now comes the part of actually who's going to do what, which is just where the rubber hits the proverbial road. So based on what you've possibly done or need to go and do according to this document, who's going to do what? So I'm going to do what? I'm going to go find someone else to do the following thing. So this is very much around the action plan for the next couple of weeks. If you are within a larger business, or you're starting a larger business and you've got some sort of structures or policies in place, is it within your company policy process? When are you going to do it by? So you're going to do step one by this. You're going to build a website next 30 days. Then we're going to set up a LinkedIn profile 2 weeks from website up. I'm going to start producing content in the next week. So the time my LinkedIn is up, I've got 2 or 3 articles I can put on there. I need to find a designer. Like, what are the resources we need? So we need designers, we need writers, we need software developers. What do we need? And how are we going to allocate the actions to these people to get them to start doing it according to our timelines? What are the performance measurements that relates to the things that we're going to do to these tactics? So again, if you're putting a rand in, how do we know we're getting a rand's worth of value back or more? Okay. And how are we tracking what those objectives are? So if we put out a blog post, what is our expectation on that? And what is the call to action? And are we getting call to action response from clients, for argument's sake? And then if we have an idea of what we think that is, what is an acceptable variance? If we want every blog post to get 5 people to sign up, I think that's unrealistic. 1 person to sign up, brilliant. If 2, great. If 0, not acceptable. Then we've got to change something. So what are the acceptable variances for each of these pieces? And then how are you going to record this? Is it a spreadsheet? You're sending off 10 mails. What is the response from 10 mails? If you're using MailChimp, you can get all the MailChimp is a place to record all your success of open rates, etc., with mails. So how are you going to record the success or failure of all these pieces that you're doing? And that can be through the production piece as well as the actual implementation of any of these actual marketing strategies. Excuse me. Are these actions and the measurement and success or failure of the actions relating to what you're hoping to achieve? So when you start this off, you want to go, well, I know that I've got this kind of client and this kind of product, but I know that I only need 2 clients or 20 clients or 200 clients. What kind of clients do I need? And is each client going to spend 1,000 or 10,000 a month? Like, what are those objectives? And is the work I'm doing yielding the right kind of results for those kinds of objectives? Who's going to measure this? My gut says if you're small business, it's going to be absolutely you. Again, how often are you going to measure this? If you need resources, like, if you do need resources, you might need sort of applications, or you may find that it's even just things like cash flow, and you get your bookkeeper to help. So if there's a resource requirement, who's going to do it? Again, when are you reviewing these measurements? And then if there are variances, how are you going to adapt your strategy to change to hopefully improve the results that you're getting? So for me, that is the 5 ones at a high level. And I went through it quite quickly because I want to have some conversation with you around each of your thinking. I don't know how far some of you are down the line, but I'd love to hear your thoughts, and maybe go back some of the pieces here. If you guys have any sort of spots that you aren't aware of, or if you want me to help you thicken out some of those pieces. So I'm opening the floor to you. Please feel free to shout.
Spilly?
Yes.
I wonder if we can just for a moment, if people don't have any particular, well, if they do have questions, then let's speak about that now on the content that you've just shared. But what I do think might be helpful is also just to say that when we run these sessions, when we run further sessions in March, it is important that people come to those sessions with a prepared view on all of these things, because this was the purpose of today, is to say this is the content that people should be thinking about right now. And when they come to the sessions in March, they should come with a prepared view on each of these elements, so that you can help them further with those questions at that point in time. Rocking up those workshops without having given thought to this is not going to help anybody, because that is the whole point of those workshops, is to be very practical. So if you know today that you're not interested in taking this further, you don't have an idea yet, you can't come with some questions and ideas on your particular business that you want to explore, then the rest of those workshops are not going to be for you. So I just wanted to say that, so that if people are interested in exploring this further, that they then, base those questions that they have possibly on with that view in mind. So
Sunette, I want to echo that. I think that the thought behind the next sessions is actually solving your business problem versus the theoretical, this is how you do it at a high level. So I want to make sure that if and I use the 2 examples, that if someone was going to start, it's a bad example, but packaging and selling bottles of honey versus selling software development, the way you approach those are very, very different. And they've got very different problems and constraints in terms of getting that product or service to market. So it's very much around the fact that you need to have a very clear idea at the very high level of what it is that you actually want to be doing as a business. Because the next sessions aren't going to be sort of high level. This is a theoretical stepping stone. It's okay. So where are you with these pieces? I want you to share the answer of your GADI pitch with me, so I can critique it and comment on it and push back or say, well done. Okay. So it's not just this is what it is, but I want you to participate in such a way that I can actually take your problem and help you thicken it out and improve it relevant to your business and what you are thinking about versus the theory piece. So my first question today is that how many of you are clear, or when I say clear, are clear on the fact that they're going to A, start a business, and B, what that business will look like in terms of the product or the service? Like, are most of you there yet, or are some of you still going, I'm not sure if I'm starting a business or whether I'm putting out my CV and getting a job? Like, who's 100% clear on starting a business?
Okay, Spilly, we are, this is Alma here. Yes, we're pretty clear that we want to start a self-catering accommodation thing, buy a place and rent it out. And based on what you just said, the question, the one thing that I wanted to ask you, for instance, is the product and the channel. You said choose one. Okay, so my product is only one. I want to offer accommodation, right?
Sure.
But the channel, the question was, is it? And you basically said, I don't know, is it different depending on your business?
Yes.
For instance, like for self-catering, do I only choose one? For instance, do I only choose, let's say, booking.com, or can
Okay.
I, because,
Yes.
yeah,
Okay.
can I choose more?
So you can, okay, let's go back a step here, right? So the first thing, Elma, I'm saying is, who are you going after? So are you going after South African tourists? Are you going after backpackers? Or are you going after luxurious German tourists? Like, who's the client you're going after? So I'm asking you, so who is that, preferably?
All right. So my response to that question was local clients and international clients. They don't have to be the rich Dutchman or something like that.
Yeah.
But I just want to offer value for money accommodation.
Okay.
And good service, of course.
Okay. Now, so the point of the 5 ones is that I want you to become, because what you're telling the rich Dutchman versus what you're telling the guy from Joburg who's got a family who wants to do a weekend breakaway to wherever your place is, it's a very different thing you're saying. And when I say it's a very different thing is that if you think about the content that you're going to need to produce, is that, are you talking about the fact that it's a 5-course plated beautiful dinner, or it's, we've got a kitchen and you can bring your own stuff? And
self-catering.
Okay, so self-catering, right? But so yes. immediately, I'm not saying you can't go after the Europeans, but what I'm saying to you is that you need to try and be very particular as a departure point on what kind of client you want to go after. And the reason being is this, is that if you're going after, and let's just use, I'm going to use backpackers as an example, okay? Just it's a maybe bad example. So, but where backpackers hang out online versus where mothers who have 2 kids hang out online, different. And where you reach them, different, and what you're saying is different. So even though you could definitely solve for both, and I'm not saying you couldn't, I'm saying is as a departure point, I'm going, if you want to become an expert for a particular kind of, and the referrals, is that, I'm unpacking your business here, but
no, thanks. Please go ahead.
If I rock up with my daughter and my wife for a fun family weekend, and there are a bunch of loud European backpackers drinking, the room may be amazing, everything you do is amazing, but I'm gonna have a problem with the people in the next room. And what that means is that I'm not going to refer your business to my friends. And I go, how was your weekend? I'm going, the room was really nice, but there were all these noisy kids. Like, we're not going back there in a rush. And guess what? None of my friends are coming to spend money with you. When I rock up and the room next door has got kids of a similar age who are now playing together in the pool, guess what? Much better experience. I'm going to tell everyone who go to this place if you've got kids, because it's the right environment. So figuring out who you're going after has massive repercussions on referrals, on people's experiences. And yes, you can, because you've got the room, you can put anyone into the room. I'm going, don't. I'm not saying that if someone finds you online, it isn't the right kind of clients that you're going to turn them away by any means. Like, obviously you would take them. And that talks to the secondary products in this example, where your primary product is something, but you do other things. Or you have different other clients. But as a departure point, I'm saying is, who are you going after? Who is the perfect client for you? And based on who you are and the kind of space that you got and where your place is and whatever that looks like, give me that. If I had to say to you, map out a picture of this person, is it a businessman? Is it a family? Is it a backpacker? And then that helps me incredibly with the messaging and the channel you want to go after. Now, obviously, in the business you're talking about, being on booking.com and being on Airbnb Absolutely. Like you've got to be on those channels as well, because for your business, that makes sense. But then in terms of even just picking the right social media channel, is that if you're going after moms, Facebook, going after backpackers, LinkedIn, you're going after, Instagram, you're going after businessmen, LinkedIn. So different social channels for the right kind of person. So does that help you? Does that
No, definitely.
clarity?
Thank you. Yes. Thank you very much. That definitely answers my question. Thanks.
So I think try pick one channel. Yeah.
I think, Spinny, just having listened to the conversation that you've had with Elma now, and linking to what Sanette is saying, I think if the one thing that people take away from this introductory session is they need to have completed those forms. That's what is it? A presentation, PowerPoint presentation, where they can input the various questions that you ask. They need to have done that by the first session, and they need to almost be at a point like Elma is, where they know I am going to go the freelancing, whatever that may be, whatever it may be, opening up a nursery school, opening up a B&B, HR or training type consultancy, and they need to come having answered those questions. And be on the road to actually developing, and I'm using a business plan because I know you hate that word, but a kind of a plan rather, as to how they are going to get there using the questions that you've provided for us.
So
because
Sanette,
it's not going to be worth.
Sorry, no, 100%. I think that Colleen, what it was going to say is that conversation I just had now as the example is exactly the kind of conversation that I want to be having. So I don't like the business plan, but bear in mind what I want to do here is that once you've got clarity on, okay, this is the kind of client I've got. So obviously you've got a business in mind, the kind of client, the kind of product that you have, and you've got an idea of how you want to get this product. Then those sessions is actually sort of the business plan.
Yeah, exactly.
So the way I generally would work is as follows: that I've got a simple, it's an 8-step business strategy, and it talks to, where are you today, which is this piece, like my thinking around where am I today, and you may be further down. What is it that this business must do for me as the leader? Like how must it serve me, the owner? Then what are we saying to the market, and what are the objectives 3 months and 12 months? And that we thicken out in way more detail. We then also go to the market to do, and that's why we'll break into pieces to go like, well, where are the opportunities? Where are the risks? What are the resources we need? And we then break that down into 3 to 5 key initiatives. So I'm using Elma's thing is to go, perfect, we need to go shoot. We need a website. We need a whole bunch of video or photos. We need some fake testimonials, maybe. Like, what are the things we need? And that's marketing. We then also, from a business plan, we also need the operational piece. So we need to make sure there's bedding and beds, and like what else do we need to do from a procurement piece? Procurement. So there'll be separate pieces that we need to think about across Elma's business. And then off the back of those big pieces, so solve marketing, solve physical, tangible touch points, solve those affiliate marketers like the Airbnbs and those things. Then we roll that down to go, okay, well, what are the sort of the tactics of that? And that is who's doing what actually on a weekly to bi-weekly sprints to go, Elma, go get 5 quotes for a videographer. Go get 2 quotes to get someone to run your social media. Go get 3 quotes for bedding and beds. Like, and that's the actual do the work to get the strategy done. And then what we try and do is we try and rank that into some kind of effort versus impact, because you cannot do everything short term. You can't do all of it very quickly. So what are we going to do 1 month, 3 months, and then month 3 to 6, 6 to 9, 9 to 12? So we can break into quarters. So we can focus on which is going to really give us the most impact with the least amount of effort. And then there's also the control measure piece. So how are we going to measure that we're actually doing the work we said we would on a week-to-week, month-to-month, quarterly basis? And that's the business plan. But there's no point attending these other sessions if you're still on the fence about, well, maybe I should, or maybe I should just get a job, then these things won't be of value to you. And I'm not saying that you started a business, but you're at Elma's place where you're going, we know we're doing a business, and this is the kind of business we're going to be running. That's enough.
Spilly, just going back to Alma's question about, should she really just choose one channel? Am I correct in saying that the approach that you are talking about here is not a be all and end all and forever and a day approach? What you are suggesting is a starting point.
Yes.
And that could change over time, but you could also add to it over time. Obviously, if you get very skilled at one channel or one client or whatever it is, at all of these ones, then maybe, yes, you want to diversify, you want to use other channels, you want to get other clients, whatever it is that's going to work for you and your product.
It's very much the start.
Yes.
Because in theory, if you had all the time and money in the world, then Elma should be doing YouTube, LinkedIn, she should be doing everything, right? But you can't. And so over time, yes. But also what's important is that Elma asked, well, should I be on like Airbnb or Booking.com? Booking.com is your conversion method. It's not necessarily your marketing. Okay. Yes, it's marketing, but what you could do is you can go and go, I'm using an example. We want to book lots of business people to buy from Elma. We can go to LinkedIn, be very smart with what we're saying and targeting people, but then pushing them to our Airbnb page or pushing them to our Booking.com page where they buy from us. So that's the conversion method, right? But the channel is actually still LinkedIn or social media. It could be we're doing an expo in the Netherlands. That's the marketing channel, but they buy on Airbnb. That's the conversion method. So there's multiple ways of looking at this. But the idea for me is as a again, departure point or starting point, you cannot do everything if you're starting a business. Try and keep it as simple as possible. And as it starts working and as you start making money, then you can start getting smarter and branching out and making it richer. But again, try and keep yourself down one path for the beginning. That's the message. Does anyone else have any questions similar to Elma's at this point?
Or anything else about the content?
About the content, yeah.
So, Spilly, I wanted to ask a question with regards to using webinars as your as one of your channels to get something out there. If, for example, you were explaining that maybe you could send out something on your LinkedIn profile saying that you're going to be doing a webinar on ABC, whatever it is. What happens if no one comes to the webinar? Or you've got two people that come to the webinar?
So the first thing for me is that webinars are interesting because if you record it, even if no one attends, obviously if no one attends, I probably wouldn't run it, but if one person attends, what tends to happen then is that you're also producing half an hour to an hour of video content that you could put up on your social media. So there's a little bit of like, I'm the expert in the space and I've got something to talk about. And that's got value, number one. But don't be afraid to fail, right? Like if a tree falls in the forest and no one hears it, did it fall? Like, don't be scared that if you run it and no one attends, that you failed. What it means is that you either don't have a unique offering or something of interest to the market, or the channel that you're using to bring people in hasn't worked. But in all likelihood, is that if it's quite specific in what you're talking about and you speak about it long enough and you market it correctly, you're going to get enough people who are interested in what you're saying to attend. And over the last year, I would say it's still one of the best ways of finding random people to attend to see if they're interested, because everything else is quite direct. It's like, it's hey, Colleen, are you interested in this thing? Or social media is very spray and pray. And then you've got to figure out how to move them from social media to something where the webinars are great because you get a chance to either interview someone or talk for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and then open up the floor. And as soon as you open up the floor and there is some Q&A, that's when you get the most value, because the people are actually posing their problem, and then you can start almost pushing them to a sales process. And bear in mind here is that running your own webinar, definitely an option. You can also get onto other people's platforms. So I've got a client here in Cape Town, funny enough, whose business has exploded over the last year. And he's paying a UK PR business, quite a lot of money actually, to do, I think it's 50 podcasts in 50 days or 40 podcasts in 40 days. So this PR lady is getting my client onto podcasts around the world, almost any podcast, because those podcasts have an audience.
Yeah.
And so they've got a proposition to go, meet so-and-so, he's the expert at this. This is what he's talking about. She pitches it to all the podcasts. Podcasts go, cool, we're looking for content. They bring him on. That, he said, he's basically closing a client per podcast, and he's got.
Sure.
So what I'm saying is that looking for webinars or other people's podcasts is kind of PR, but as opposed to you going, I've got to think about what I'm going to say, and I've got to go find people to attend my webinar. I'm saying is, who runs webinars on a regular basis? Reach out to those people if they're relevant, and then say you want to be on the webinar, you want to be on their seminar, you want to be, and that works incredibly well because they've got an audience.
Yeah. Thanks,
Does that
Billy.
make sense? Cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Anything of interest you want to know, or any problems I can help you solve in the room today? Okay. Sanette?
Hello.
Hello.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's then it for today, mainly, Spilly. So can I then summarize? So we will send out an email. You'll get the email from Nicole Lowe. She's probably already sent it to you. That will ask you if you are interested in attending these sessions in March with Spilly. And there are voting buttons to that email, and you must just say yay or nay, yes or no. We will then collate that, and then we will base the structure and the format and the logistics of those sessions based on obviously how many people we have that are interested. So that's just a little bit on the logistics, and please let us know by tonight, 6 o'clock latest. And then what we also said now is if you don't have some idea that you can answer those questions about that Spilly just shared with us, then those sessions are probably not for you. So you don't know whether you're going to be selling jars of honey, or whether you're going to be doing a consulting business, or whether you are going to be doing web development or software development, then those sessions aren't for you. All right, Spilly is not going to take you through a process of deciding what that is.
So Nasli just asked, will it be one-on-one sessions or a group? And it is a conversation Sanette and I have had, and we will decide based on volumes. So if 40 of you want one-on-one, that could be a bit of a problem. But then we could maybe do like 1-on-3 or 1-on-5, maybe smaller sessions, plus a bigger one. So it very much depends on how many people want to attend. And, again, to answer the questions on the email, we'll then tailor it. And I've got an indication of what I want to run with you, but I obviously want to make sure that it's valuable for each of you individually versus the group. So I think that, Nasli, to answer your question, the answer is maybe, and we'll know in the next day or two whether it's going to be one-on-one or a combination of one-on-one and groups.
All right, so that's that. And obviously, Spilly, you've given us the format already, so we can just go, if we've got our idea, we can answer those questions, and that we will then bring to those sessions in March. Okay, and then I don't know who, there's no need to fill the forms that you've done into anybody. They're yours for your thinking. But again, I want to make sure that you're thinking about your business in a smart way before we do the sessions later this year. So they're yours, don't hand it in. But if you're taking it seriously, go through it and do it, yeah.
Spilly, sorry, just a question. Now, some of these questions you know, you don't know the answers to, obviously, because I haven't started running my business.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, for instance, the one question that for like the common struggles within this industry we can assist you with, you know. I can imagine what the kind of problems there is, you know, so can I just put that down?
So the struggle, so let's go back here. The struggle is, okay, Elma, I'm like into too much detail. If you're going after business people or you're going after backpackers, the struggle is different. Number one.
Understand.
Okay? So firstly, define the client as best as possible, and then work out, well, what is their pain point. And what you may find is that, like, backpackers' biggest pain point is getting around town because they don't buy vehicles, and Uber's expensive, right? How do we help them? So we need a vehicle that we can, and examples that if you've got a little taxi to run guys around, that's amazing for backpackers. Like, you know, like we do drop-offs here and here, or whatever. Where business people different. So figure out what the struggles are for your client, the kind of client you want, and that helps you define what are the other product pieces you need outside of a room that's going to make them have an amazing experience and refer you.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Yeah, and that's assumption. It is an assumption, but you've got to put yourself in their space, in their headspace.
And Spilly, is it also correct to say that, I mean, you also said, so I think as part of the bits that you filled in, I mean, we won't be able to answer 100% of those questions right now, and maybe some of those questions aren't even relevant to the industry that we're in, or the product that we will sell. But to try as best we can to answer those questions, and if it's I suppose it's okay if one or two of those questions or more we can't answer right yet. Is that perfect? Is that okay?
So that's perfect. And all I'm doing is I'm trying to get you to think about your client, think about your product and solution in its entirety. So, you know, Elma's B&B or whatever it looks like, but it's not just the B&B. It's the distribution from the airport to the B&B. It's the food she serves. It's the internet that she has. It's like, it's the whole package. It's not just that piece. So based on who you're selling to, which elements are required for that business. And some of it will be guessed. But I also don't want you to spend lots of time and effort putting in, like, it's a bad example, but if you're going after backpackers, putting in DSTV, probably a waste of time. If you're going after businessmen, they probably want BBC. So therefore, DSTV becomes more important. So everything is determined by the kind of person you're going after. Again, just an example. So not all the questions are relevant for every business, and some of them are a guess at this point. But as you start developing the business, you're going to start getting real information and feedback from clients. That's when you're going to start tailoring it. Okay.
All right. So, are there any further questions about the process from here? Anything that anybody wants to clarify still? All right, Colleen. Anything that I've forgotten that I should emphasize, or anything else that you can think of for now?
No, Sanette, I think you have covered everything. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Good.
Okay, then thank you, Spilly, for another great session and for all the content. This has been very useful, very practical, I think, for people who have got some idea of what they want to do, like the Elmas. You know, the next sessions will be very, very useful once you've given some thought to the answers to these questions.
Good. I look forward to seeing some of you in the next couple of weeks.
Yes. Thank you. Can I just ask Dion and Spilly and Colleen if you have got another 10 minutes to just stay behind?
Yeah. Sure, Sanette, no problem.
Sure. Looking forward to it, Spilly. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you very much.